Rob Schneider, welcome to Triggernometry.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You look happy.
I am happy. It is a joyous time in my nation and for the world. Yeah, but the Trump victory was just a phenomenal achievement. An incredible, the greatest comeback in American political history. It's a stunning achievement. Most importantly, it's a stunning rebuke for this authoritarian, narcissistic crap that America's been having to deal with for the last few years. And so if you'll have to excuse me if I am extremely enjoying this moment in time. It's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you switched parties about 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Is
Well,
this,
I mean, if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you know what they say, you're heartless. But if you're still liberal in your 50s, you're an idiot. And I just never understood. I just assumed. I realized that the Democratic Party goes out of its way to try to help people when they have no power to do anything, so nothing gets done. But there's this feeling that they are supporting you somehow, and I think that's what happens, to people who still support the party. And then there's the super elites. Like it is wonderful to see. To enjoy, for me, having lived here and been through this kind of elitist, crying and complaining, and Oprah Winfrey saying we're going to have the democracy's over if we don't elect Kamala, who wasn't democratically chosen to be the Democratic Party nominee for president. And Robert De Niro saying, threatening him, and it's nice to know that. None of that worked. And these people are so rich, and they have so much money and power that they can avoid the very real life consequences of democratic policies of the last few years with open borders, which were simply open to just moving people, in the middle of the night. No one's doing anything good in the middle of the night, flying people.
I don't know. I can think of a few things that are fun in the, but I take your point.
But it was just for forever power. And it was like, we're just going to have, like California, we're going to have a supermajority of Democrats, and there will be a choice. Which Democrat do you want? I mean, you're going to have a choice in this one or this one. You'll have choice of these. But it was really becoming close to being the Republican Party, which I would, I found appalling, in my youth. But where the Republican Party would be a forever minority party. And that was the plan. And truthfully, the Republicans in Congress, they love to, as long as they 93% reelection rate, they're happy to even lose. So this was an astounding achievement, because I think we were I guess the left went so far left, they left the American people behind. And so their policies, which they wouldn't even mention. I mean, Kamala Harris, she says she's the law and order district attorney for California. She wouldn't back a bill that's 36, which passed with the tremendous numbers here in California, which is basically to just, if you steal something, shoplift, they have to prosecute you. I mean, it doesn't seem that complicated. But this week, the day before the election, she just said, "I'm not going to comment on that." So we didn't know. So how are you against that? So you really have, like one remaining Walgreens in San Francisco, and anytime you try to buy anything in a store, it's like, "Excuse me, can I get somebody to unlock the bananas so that I can get?" You can't live your life that way. So I don't even know how Democrats can. There's this woman practically in tears on the plane that I flew here, and I was just trying to console her, because I think it's going to have to be the Republicans that put on the big boy pants here, and they're going to have to be the reconciliation party, and the party that reaches out to the other side, and the party that doesn't do the lawfare and vindictiveness. I think that's going to have to be. I met with I went to Washington D.C., met with the congressmen to start talking, and they have legislation now to make sure that if any lawfare on the state level for whether it's a senator, any federally elected official, including past or present vice presidents or president, that if it's at the state level, which could be corrupted, as we saw what happened in New York City with Donald Trump, it's automatically jumped up to the federal. So you can have a fair case. So you can still bring charges against somebody, but at least it's taken out of the political realm as much as possible. And that's what we're going to have to do, things like that, to move things peacefully forward in this country.
Franz, can I just finish on this? You said that, the Churchill quote, I think it's Churchill, about the liberal when you're young, and et cetera.
I think so, yeah.
Is that really true, though, Robert? Because one of the things that strikes me is, I don't know how much you've changed, you tell me, but I think the Democrats have changed dramatically.
They have, yeah.
So when you were still voting for them, they were pro border security and all of these other issues. There were many of them to the right of where Donald Trump is now. So is it that you got old and conservative, or is it that they, like you said, they went so far to the left, they left the country behind?
They did. And also there was just, in California, you have, there is not one aspect of your life that this administration, and I understand the Democrats have been in charge for 12 of the last 16 years. So there literally was nothing, no part of your life, whether it's your kid's school, where they literally, Gavin Newsom passed a law that if your kid was claimed or was, there's a lot of the social contagion of gender dysphoria, which is at a very delicate time for any youth at a time. And there's also a percentage of kids that are on the spectrum who could be fall prey to this gender dysphoria, and it's a contagion or gender contagion in society. And so they passed a law that if you can't tell the parents, so I didn't sign up to co-parent with the state of California. It's my kid, my wife's kid. We're going to do it. So we got the hell out of here. As I say in my act, it's a very Rodney Dangerfield style joke. I said, hey, it's dangerous taking your kids to public school in California, In the morning you drop off a girl, in the afternoon you pick up a boy. You know what I'm saying? It's dangerous. Hey. But it's not that exaggerated. I do feel it's... so they did, there was even legislation here. It was a joke of mine that went, I thought about it for a year, the joke. And it kind of crystallized finally as I was driving my car. Because sometimes you can take something and try to complicate it, but the more simple you can get the joke. But it was about slave reparations. Because it passed committee. They don't know how to do it. But it passed committee. They don't know what they're going to do. And Gavin Newsom did agree to sign the bill for slave reparations. And it's like, so the state of California wants to pay money, to pay people who were never slaves to be paid for by people who never owned slaves in a state that never had slaves. They said, that's like paying child support for a child you never had to a woman you never fucked. It's like, and it just, it just gets to the point. People kind of get it. And so, but I think so the Democrats have been able to, I think the best comedy now is more conservative based because you have to go against the power base. And the power base has been this illiberal liberalism that I just don't feel like it speaks to the average person.
The first time I came to this city was in 2002, and it was completely different. When was a moment for you where you started to notice things going awry?
Well, it had to do with medical freedom of parents and the kind of the tightening the noose for the pharma industry. Big pharma is a real problem in the United States. The power of big pharma, like I tell this to people in California, well, everywhere. I say, like, you take the Mexican drug cartels, and they make maybe $10 billion, roughly, maybe on a good year, 15, 20, and that goes a long way in pesos. However, you take a look at the pharma industry, just for the vaccine industry, it's $350 billion. It really is. And then they want to get it up to $750 billion by the end of the decade. And that's just this particular group of drugs. And they make it mandatory for you. And what they did in COVID was there's no liability. As a matter of fact, Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and what is the other one? Moderna. And there's another one.
AstraZeneca.
AstraZeneca, thank you. They would not go into a country unless they were given blanket immunity from liability for the harm of these drugs. So they know something's up with it. And they didn't want to release the information because if the state's paying for it, this is Americans' property. So that's why we have the freedom of information. I know you guys have that too in the UK. So you have to turn over these papers. And what they tried to do was, the FDA, and that's why we have a captured agency by industry, the revolving door between industry and agency. You could be at the head of the Merck division for vaccines, and then the next thing you know, you could be at the FDA, and then you could leave and then go. So and the FDA is funded primarily by the drug industry. So, for instance, if you have a new drug, you have to spend what's $50,000 for just the application, and the application for drug fees is what funds it. And then you also do your own research. You do your own studies to find out its safety. So it's basically letting the fox in the hen house. So there needs to be some firewall, and that's what Robert Kennedy and I have talked about for years, is to have a firewall so that you can do what's best to protect the people. I mean, these agencies have to be for the protection of people and to benefit the United States citizens and their children. So I saw the encroachment where pharma would actually write the new rules for the medical boards, and the medical boards, because the big pharma pays. If you look at the biggest contributors for all political parties and for political candidates, whether it's at the state level or federal, you'd be shocked that the majority of it is coming from pharma.
Wow.
It's just too much power. So they're able to have a stranglehold. And it's also a stranglehold in our economy. We spend 5 times more for our drugs here than they do in Europe, and we're not getting the same results. So I think one of the things that Robert Kennedy's talked about, is there's only 2 countries that allow straight to consumer advertising of drugs. And it's just us and New Zealand. Well, New Zealand, you can understand why they would do it down there. They're so far away from people, and they're very nervous and cold, and so close to the Antarctica. But so that's going to be a big deal, because 75% of all advertising, when they say Pfizer, the news, Anderson Cooper brought to you by Pfizer, that's because Pfizer is paying Anderson Cooper $20 million. So that's affecting the news. So that those tentacles have to be taken off one by one, and so that we can have a chance to kind of undo the damage that the pharma has done. So that's what got me involved originally in it.